I live in Latin America. It's just like anywhere else. Just more people speak Spanish and it's a little bit different. Más tranquilo. I come from a hyper-competitive area in the States, and was worried this cultural difference might be an issue for me. But to my surprise, it wasn't, and I'm adapting quite nicely to the local customs. Por ejemplo, the neighbors can sometimes be a little rude with their music, especially around the holidays. I thought this would bother me more, but hey, it's their country and they're having fun. Just one of those things I'll get used to, I guess. My wife and I just moved to a new neighborhood, from a busy street to a reasonably quiet part of the city. In Latin America, you pay for quiet and peace of mind. We were initially worried about the increase in rent, but we both agreed that the price was right and settled into our new home. Compared to our last location, this place was a luxury. It was a gated community, a first for us, and had state-of-the-art security in the form of cameras, lighting, and electric fencing. To get in, you either needed a remote for the large car door or a key card for the smaller pedestrian one. Our new neighbors welcome us, invite us to join the local WhatsApp group, and get us set up on the app-based security cameras. It was kinda cool. You could save footage from a few days ago and review it any time there was a reason to check the cameras. It also recorded audio. That was a little weird, but it's a good reason to watch what you say when you're in public areas. You never know who might be listening. To our surprise and dismay, our neighbors are more or less capable of speaking English. Damn. I was hoping we'd have our own secret language to talk amongst ourselves. But these folks are fairly well off and educated, so them knowing English really isn't unusual. It's a status thing here. Like owning a car despite it being a major inconvenience. This city wasn't built around the automobile. It was built around horses and people, and the roads reflect this reality. Our new neighbors speak freely about their occupations: an artist, an owner of a cafe, several lawyers, and how long they've lived in the neighborhood. Aside from us, they're all the original owners, so we really are the new gringos on the block. All established friends with long histories, grievances, and judgments. They lower their voices when they speak of the family up the street in House 1. Nobody really likes them, and from what I can make out of their Spanish, I can't really tell why. Just that they might not be as friendly or outgoing as the rest of them. Let's call this a yellow flag. Day 1 and already gossiping with strangers. That's cringe. We thank them for the warm welcome and leave to start unpacking. Some weeks go by without event, until one day, when I'm coming home from the gym, the guy from House 1 comes walking up to me with a concerned look on his face. Up until this point, I haven't had many interactions with him outside of the basic greetings you do when passing people on the street. A nod, a buenas tardes, maybe a como está if I'm feeling friendly, and move on. So I had no idea what we were about to get into. "Did you see anyone out there?" he says to me. "Two guys, one with a brown hat. Anyone?" No one is out there. I thought back to earlier, when I went to the gym. I had seen two people then, but they look like they live in the nearby cul-de-sac, like they belong here. He continues in Spanish, telling me, from what I gather, that there was a sketchy guy out front, peeking into the neighborhood through the gate. "Verdad? Really?" I say. He nods emphatically and goes to peek out the front gate, scanning left and right. He comes back, and I thank him for the warning, feeling an odd sense of community with this man. Crime has been a bit of an issue. Just recently, there's been a gang of 15 people breaking into homes in some of the nicer areas, so his concern isn't for nothing. "I'm calling the police. Ten cuidado," he tells me. and I go inside to tell my wife about the new excitement in the neighborhood. I can't explain it, but I trust this man in House 1, and if he's concerned about a raid, I'm concerned. I don't scare easily, but I will have my guard up for the next few nights. If we really are getting targeted, I want to be ready. Later that night, the group chat is popping off. Apparently, House 1 went back to the security footage and shared a screenshot of the suspicious guy with the group. What? No way. He always thinks he sees someone out there, doing something weird. He's just a bored old man with nothing to do. Once they saw the picture, they started to freak out. We need to change the code to the door and the cameras. One of our vecinos tried to physically lock the car door with a carabiner meant for carrying your keys or a water bottle. I guess taking any action, regardless of its effectiveness, is better than none when you're freaking out. We were all pretty much on edge for the rest of the night. I scroll through the group chat, looking for the pictures. I find them, and it doesn't look good. In several pictures is a tall man wearing a bright yellow jacket. It kinda looks like a rain slicker, like the one that Georgie wears in the first It movie from 2017. Super weird. Sure enough, he's got his face pressed up to the crack in the front gate, peering through, looking for something or someone. In another picture, he's talking on the phone, discussing something. Maybe he's telling them what they see. House 1 thinks the man might be a scout, casing the neighborhood for valuables, and settles on the idea that they might come back at night for the motorcycles parked outside. Or maybe he's just waiting to meet someone, my wife chimes in. You know, that's actually totally possible, I say. Aside from peeking through the gates and hanging around, he's not actually doing anything. He's probably just got the wrong address, or somebody wasn't slick when they texted the weed man, and now they can't go out to meet him because they'd be caught on camera. Yeah, I guess it's possible. We have a laugh at our excitable neighbors and get ready for bed. The next day, we check the group chat. There's been some new development in the night. Around 2 a.m., there were several attempts to log into the security cameras. The neighborhood got the security techs out the next day to change the codes, issue new door openers, and test the electric fencing. I don't know how close we were to a raid. I just thank whatever divines are up there for watching out for me and my family. My speech therapist is pretending to be my mom. This is a situation I found out about around 8 months ago, but it has stayed in my mind ever since. As a child, I had severe speech delay. I was completely mute up until a few weeks before kindergarten. This caused me to have a speech impediment, which I technically still have to this day, but to a lesser extent. I'm lucky enough that the letters I have trouble with match up with the letters often dropped in certain accents. So, to the untrained ear, I sound British or Australian, depending on who you ask. Because of this, I often just confirm their assumptions because it's easier to lie about being British than to explain the speech impediment thing and face any stigma that goes with it. The only people who know the truth are my very close friends and family. Now for the story. I, 18 female, was dating a girl my age. We were at a social event when we met up with one of her friends. Let's call her Jenny. I technically have known her since 9th grade, but not very well. So, we all start talking, and randomly, completely unrelated to the current conversation, Jenny asks me how my mom is doing. I'm caught off guard because she doesn't really know my mom, and that's not usually something you throw into a conversation unless you're a family friend. So I ask her, why? Do you know her? Jenny goes on to explain that my mom used to be an EA, education assistant, and helped her work on her behavioral issues in elementary and middle school. Now, this is weird because although my mom did work in a school for a brief time, she was a lunchtime supervisor and only ever worked in one school, a school I know Jenny didn't go to. So I asked her if she's sure it was my mom, because she wasn't an EA. Jenny confirms because my mom used to talk about me all the time. And when she was deciding which high school to go to, my mom recommended my high school, because that's the school her daughter goes to. Now, within my high school, there were a few people with the same name as me. My name is about as basic white girl as they come. So I ask her, "Are you sure it's me, and not someone else with my name?" She confirms it was definitely me, because my mom would tell her details about my life and told her about my time going to speech therapy. Now, hold up. As I said earlier, I'm very secretive about my speech impediment. This friend is clearly someone I've never told. Although I will admit it's not impossible to guess, and the girl I was dating at the time could have told her. But I have never, and I mean never, ever, ever, told anyone about going to speech therapy. That's just not a detail I share when I'm telling my life story. It's clear that someone who knows me, like family, is telling her this stuff. There is no way Jenny could have guessed so many details about my life. So, just to confirm that somehow my real mother doesn't have a double life, I ask her what my mother looks like. She responds that she's somewhat short with curly brown hair. This is not my mother. My mom is tall and blonde. However, this is exactly what my first speech therapist looked like. She was hired through the school district, and I saw her for about 2 years before she switched to another school. She also works with a variety of special needs, meaning it's very likely she went on to become Jenny's EA. But all this is to say that somewhere out there, this speech therapist is for some reason pretending to be my mom, and to some extent stalking me, as she would have had to have done her research to find out which high school I go to. A few extra details I remember while telling this story. When I was a child, but after I had switched to a new speech therapist, I was in a store with my mom where there was a shiny blue guitar. Me being a child and liking shiny blue things, I really wanted this guitar. My mom said no, as it was expensive and I had shown little interest in playing the guitar besides watching my dad play his bass. I was disappointed, but I understood. Out of nowhere, my old speech therapist shows up and buys the guitar for me. My mom told her she didn't have to, but my therapist insisted. At the time, this just seemed like a nice thing she did, albeit overly generous. But now, knowing she's parading around pretending to be my real mom, it definitely colors the situation in a different light. I don't know how to feel about the gift now. There's not much I can do about the situation, as I don't even remember what the woman's name was. So, let's just hope we don't meet again. Always look where the taxi driver is going. This might not be a super freaky story, but it is a great reminder that you should never get too comfortable in a taxi car. Where I live, the taxi service is pretty great. We have a global app, where you have an ID as a passenger and the driver has one too. We have a rating system, so you're encouraged to be a decent person if you want to get a ride. You feel pretty safe with this system. It's not like old times hailing a random taxi off the street. I've never had any serious trouble with drivers before. That all changed one day. I needed to drive from one small town to another, through the big city center. From the beginning, something was off. The taxi was showing very oddly on the app's map, but it happens sometimes. The internet and geolocation sometimes just don't work right. Either way, the driver finally arrives, and we head off. The driver doesn't press that he started the trip in the app, and I didn't see him in the awaiting status. Sometimes they wait so they can get some extra cash. It was odd, but not that big a deal. We were taking a bit of an unusual route to get there, not the one I'm used to. I had a weird thought. What if he goes the wrong direction right now, and not to the city center, but to the suburban area? And to my surprise, he did just that. He was silent from the start of the trip, and there's no way he did it by accident. He still hadn't started the drive yet in the app, and is going literally in the opposite direction of my final destination. I felt very uncomfortable. It feels horrible when something like this happens and you're alone in the car with a driver. I ask him, "Hey, excuse me, what path did you choose? I don't need to go there." He immediately changed direction to the right way, pressed "The drive has been started" in the app, and had a weird look on his face, like he was mad or upset about something. My trip was about an hour long. He kept driving, not as the navigator suggested, but still going the right way. He kept messing up the path when we were close to the end of the trip. I called my friend, saying I was almost there, so the driver knows people are waiting for me just in case. He remained silent, and I got out of the car, pretty shook up by my experience. I understand he probably wasn't up to anything wrong, but it was all super weird. What if my app wasn't working, and I wasn't paying attention, or I didn't know the way? I guess it's possible he was taking the longest available route, which is about an hour longer. Why? Just to get more cash? That's ridiculous. I wrote a complaint and reported the situation to the app support team. So, creepy taxi driver, let's not meet again. Did I just walk into a mafia drug ring? I'm a Chicago Cubs fan, but have lived in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area all my life. Earlier this season, when the Pirates were in Chicago, I decided to go to a sports bar to watch the game, specifically one I've driven past a bunch of times but have never given a try. I went in there about 5 or 10 minutes before the first pitch, in my Cubs gear. There was a woman tending the bar, with an old couple sitting at the end. They both stared at me as I came in, as if I was an alien or something. I figured it was because I was wearing the opposing team's gear. No greeting or anything. I sat myself down and just waited for the game to start. I noticed that the old couple and bartender were deep in conversation. They were fixated on each other. I walk up to the bar to try and order food. There were no menus, napkins, salt, pepper, anything on the table indicating there was food served there. As I was talking to the bartender, I noticed there were no bottles, taps, or any alcohol behind the bar at all. It was just a bunch of random Pittsburgh sports memorabilia. Very random things, too. Nothing really followed a theme, as well as a bunch of signs saying things similar to, "If you're easily offended, get out," and the like. While I was talking to the bartender, the old couple was just staring at me blankly. She told me she'd be right back out with the menu, and was in the back room for a good 10 minutes or so before bringing me one. Really odd, but I ordered anyway. I ended up getting a pizza slice and a wing and fry basket combo. It was ridiculously cheap. I paid like $6 for all of it. The pizza slice was massive. There were a dozen huge wings, and the basket of fries was giant. It felt like anywhere else, this would have cost well over $20. The food was done in just a few minutes, and it was brought out to me by the bartender. What's weird is, she went into the kitchen, or what I presume to be the kitchen, to seemingly cook it herself. I got a glimpse of the kitchen, when she opened the door and it was almost completely empty. There were no cooks, no sounds of ovens, fryers, or anything. The wings were really, really good though. So were the fries. Easily the best wings and fries I've ever had. The pizza was immaculate as well. It was almost too good. As soon as I got my food, more people started coming in. Some very strange individuals too. I was watching the game by this point, but would frequently side-eye and observe what was going on. I was at the table closest to the door and by the biggest TV, but everyone else that came in sat at the very end of the bar, as far away from me as possible. Them, the old couple, and the bartender were non-stop talking, and talking very quietly. I couldn't make out what they were saying. They all looked like statues, never changing facial expressions even when talking. Completely straight faces. None of them ordered anything at all. It was more social than anything. That's weird enough. But some of the stranger actions I noticed are as follows. There was not a single person wearing any sort of Pittsburgh sports gear. All the most bland, boring outfits imaginable. It was a Saturday 2 p.m. game. There should have been plenty of Pirates fans watching the game and getting drunk with their buddies, but nope, not one. Whenever the Pirates scored or did anything good, there wasn't any reaction from anybody. No cheers, no groans. It's almost like the game wasn't even on. Yet they were all glued to the screens watching it, while having these conversations with the bartender. The man from the old couple was the strangest. Every 5 minutes or so, he would walk over to the video slot machine right by my table and put in a $20 bill, and bet it all at once, losing every single time. He did this for probably an hour and a half. Towards the end of the game, he proceeded to walk over to the music machine, puts in a $20 bill, and played the strangest, most vintage-sounding dance music I've ever heard. Like, not any big names at all. Just very random stuff. Like a hole-in-the-wall ice cream social playlist of the most 1930s underground songs possible. For whatever reason, they had it so the jukebox took over the TV audio, so I could no longer hear the game. I guess it was a way to drive me out of there. Finally, after a good half hour or so, the game ended, and the jukebox playlist was still going. It had been about 3 hours since I placed my order. The bartender never came to check in on me, nor give me my check. I went up to ask for the check myself, and she looked a little confused. Before giving me the check, she went over to the group of 5 or 6 people sitting at the end of the bar, says something to them, and they all proceed to get up and walk out the back door together. She goes back to the kitchen, comes out a few minutes later with my check, and I pay. I then left. I was already kinda uneasy and started to feel something was off. And when I left, one of the strange people at the end of the bar was outside the door and tried to strike up a conversation about Chicago or whatever, but I just mumbled a vague answer, got in my car, and got out of there. Did I walk in on a cult? A genuine mafia area? A drug ring?